Hello and welcome to the No Flipping Excuses Show, the only podcast in real estate investing that teaches what you need to know to find and flip deals right now. Wow. Break free the chains that are holding you back and join us on this episode with Jason Lucchesi.
Hey, what's up? It's Jason Lucchesi, and welcome to the No Flipping Excuses Show. We are going to be going a little off topic here and doing something completely different on this episode. And I've got my good friend with me, Mr. Michael Bredthauer. You guys know him as The Myth. Michael, how are you doing?
I'm doing really good. I was actually doing a lot better up until about 5 minutes ago when somebody let me know how terrible I was at basketball and how they learned that information, not by seeing me play, but by a good friend telling them.
Okay, Michael. Well, let's just ask the question then. Are you good at basketball?
No, I'm not.
Okay, so my assumption, even though I did used to see as a kid try, or should I say attempt to play sports, was not really that good. So there we go, Mike. You have said it. We are on video with you admitting to how you are as a basketball
I never said I was terrible. I just said I was not as good as some people might think as a basketball player should be. Like, I'm no LeBron James for sure.
Yeah, no, I hear you, Mike.
But, you've got some other players around here that I might stack up to.
Okay. Well, let's hop into this podcast episode where we're going to be talking about a little thing called debt. And there is a lot of individuals as Americans that are in debt. They're in way over their head. We call it the debt to income ratio, especially if you are living in an apartment, you're living in a house, wherever you might be living. Most Americans are living well above their means. And on this episode, we want to talk about how you can get yourself out of debt and really start focusing on living your life. Instead of living to go to work, you could start living your life. And most people don't really get to see that until good old retirement. So instead of waiting until you're in your 60s or 70s to enjoy the 40 or 50 years that you put into the workforce, why not start enjoying that, Mike, a little bit more rather than waiting for it? You know what I mean?
Yeah, actually, when you say a lot of people, I think you probably mean 99% of people are living a life of debt.
Well, as of right now with student loans and credit cards, it's well over $1 trillion. Oh. And a lot of those individuals are having a tough time making the minimum payments on their credit cards, and they're having a very, very tough time making their student loan payments, Mike. So on this episode, what I really want to discuss is some strategies for getting folks out of that. Because essentially what you want to be is at a 35% mark of how much you have as far as debt. So that could include your mortgage, your car, that can include any type of other revolving debts that you have that are being paid out every single month. That could also include installment loans too. You should never get above 35%. Another key thing, Mike, with credit cards is if you have a $10,000 maximum limit, you should never go above $5,000 or 50% of what your card's maximum limit is, because that is going to start showing and reporting negatively on the 3 credit bureaus. I don't know how or why they do that, but being in the mortgage business for as long as I have been and knowing a lot of credit professionals, they just don't like seeing you being overextended on your credit. So one of the things that I was, when I was in debt, I had a lot of bad debt. I was in foreclosure status. I had about $60,000 in credit cards. I read a book, and I don't encourage or recommend you to do this. It was a Debt Cures book by Kevin Trudeau. And basically, he recommended in the book to just settle on those debts that are owed. So what I did is I would call the credit card companies and I would settle those debts. And typically it would be for about 19 to 21 cents on the dollar. What I didn't know, Mike, is that it reported essentially the same as a bankruptcy. And it knocked my score down from about 720 to 460 literally within a month's period of time. So that completely destroyed my credit, and it stays on the credit for a very long period of time. And as you guys know, credit ranges from 350 to 850.
And I don't think I think there are some people out there that don't fully understand how hard it is to recover once your score drops to something like 400 and something. Like it's not like it went from a 780 to a 700. You just got to make up that 80 points. You're now considered somebody who's high risk and nobody wants to lend money to.
Yeah, and if you are going to get anything lent to, especially, individuals that have poor credit and they go and get a car, you're going to see like a high 20s percent for your APR, and it's going to be very unaffordable. Yeah,
actually, I talked to some people who were trying to recover from things like bankruptcies and things where they got over leveraged on their credit card debt, and their score dropped dramatically. And it wasn't even the bankruptcy itself that was the big challenge. The big challenge for them was having this really low credit score, not being able to get a credit to get a car, so they couldn't work. They couldn't get to work. They had to it was a huge struggle just to get that score back to the point where they could get, something basic like a car. Yeah. So when you say your score is at 480, they really need to understand where you were when your credit was that low.
Yeah. And, like I was saying, those are things that you do not want to do in order to increase your score. One of the things that I would encourage you to do right now, especially if you have over $10,000 in debt, is start doing a monthly budget for yourself. So if you are making, $5,000 per month, start setting aside a certain dollar amount every single month. One cool thing that I started realizing when I was about 17 years old is I would take all of the singles and all of the fives out of my pocket, and I would put them into separate envelopes. And I did this for about a year. And all of a sudden now I've got, a couple $1,000 in singles and in $5 bills. And now, nowadays everybody uses their credit card, so that may not be as super effective. But if you do have cash, like actual paper that you use, that would be something as just something really side, like to
that's a great
put a little bit of money away.
That's a great little exercise. When you have that pocket change, the singles and the fives, to set them aside and put them away. I like that.
It is. It's good. And the other thing too is once you get about maybe $500 saved up from your monthly expenditures, what I would encourage and recommend is obviously you need to start worrying about your retirement, and you need to start worrying about the future. And you could start really creating an amazing future for yourself right now. You could go to a company like an Horizon Trust and put $500 in there, and you could actually open up a self-directed IRA account, which gives you complete freedom, complete control on how you could have that money grow exponentially. And if you have listened to any of our previous episodes, we've discussed how you can go and invest in real estate with $500. Like, say for instance, Mike has a house for sale. He wants $100,000 for that house. Well, I don't have $100,000, but what I do have is I created a list of investors that would like to buy that house, because that house, once it's fixed up, is worth $200,000. Now, here's what I can do. If you want to grow that $500, I now put it under contract with Mike to buy it for $100,000. But my main goal is to either do what's called an assignment of contract, or to do what's called an A to B, B to C transaction, to where I have an end buyer and I'm going to sell it to that end buyer. So I use that $500 to give to Mike as an earnest money deposit from my self-directed IRA account. Okay. Now, what I do is I sell that property under contract to my end buyer for $120,000. Now, Mike, we're not, math experts here, but what's the difference between $100,000 and $120,000?
Jeez, $80,000.
That's true. So you could give an opportunity to somebody to make $80,000, but now how much are we able to make from a wholesale standpoint? We've got it under contract for $100,000. we're going to sell it to our end buyer for $120. So now we have $20,000 that we can make. So how does this happen as far as from a tax-free standpoint? Well, we use that $500 from our self-directed IRA account. So that $500 has now been turned into $20,000, which is tax-free. If you do that a couple times per year, by the time you turn 59 and a half and want to take money out of your self-directed IRA account tax-free, now you could double check with an accountant or a licensed tax professional on this yourself, but at 59 and a half, you're able to take out all of that money and it's all tax-free. So Mike, what do you think about that strategy with being able to at least set up retirement? I know we haven't talked about yet about getting yourself out of debt, but from setting yourself up from a retirement standpoint and doing that maybe 4 or 5 times a year, how is that going to be able to help somebody?
Well, that's a good way to be thinking about, getting out of debt is planning ahead and planning for your retirement. Because if you plan for your retirement and you plan to have a life of, money and not having to worry about debt, that's a good way right there to manage your debt. It's setting yourself, because, there is going to be a certain age point when you can't work or you just don't want to work, But what you're doing is you're avoiding, with this process that you're laying out, you're avoiding the whole, how do I get myself out of debt and stay out of debt?
Yeah, exactly. And, that's a great way to build up your retirement is through a self-directed IRA, and being able to pull out that money when you want to retire is going to be huge. And we recommend to our students that are real estate investors, every 5th deal, do that within your self-directed IRA, because it's going to pay off for you in huge dividends. Now, a main reason why I wanted to do this show is because I really wanted to contribute and help folks out that are maybe facing, massive amounts of debt. And, some of the things that folks do, the so-called American dream, Mike, is getting over leveraged. It's having a nice car, having a nice house, having nice material things. Don't get me wrong, those things are great. But if you can't afford them, you can't afford them. So if you have a house right now that you're just over leveraged with, I would encourage folks to sell. Get into a house that you can afford, get yourself on track over the next 3 to 5 years, set some money aside. Maybe you have credit card debt. You need to start paying that credit card debt down, because if all you're doing is making the minimum payment, you're going to pay that sucker off in 30, 40 years.
Right. And don't put yourself into a house, because I would say put yourself into a house where you can build up some equity, build up something that you can use to further build your goals. But don't take that equity in that house, pay off your credit card debts, and you're like, I got no credit card debt, and then get more credit card debt.
Yeah.
That's another problem that you can run into. And I think a lot of people, even myself included for a while, especially in the very beginning stages of business, and Jason, maybe you kind of felt this too, I don't know, but I really wasn't even thinking about retirement, like where I need to be, because at some point, I did at some point in my life say, hey, there's going to be a point when I don't want to work anymore, or I can't work anymore. But right now, I'm just so focused on planning right now. I just, I'm racking up debt, putting things on credit cards, and I'm not putting anything into any sort of a retirement fund. It's all, it's all going to the right places right now as far as, I'm racking up debt, but it's more of an investment at this point in the tools and things, but I'm not putting anything into the future, to the, the retirement account because at some point I'm going to hit that retirement age. I'm going to stop working. And then it's either I'm going to have my retirement to live on, or I'm going to have credit cards to rack up more debt to live on. And that's, when I'm 80 and those credit cards, I'm like, okay, I've got no retirement. I've got, 100,000, 200,000 in credit card debt, and I'm 80 years old. Now is not the time to figure out how to get out of this.
No, that's absolutely true, Mike. And that's unfortunately how most Americans are. The baby boomers right now, they're still working. A lot of folks, are going back to work because they thought they were going to have enough in their retirement. Most folks are coming to the realization that they don't have enough. They're saying right now, if you don't have at least $10,000 a month coming in when you are retired, that's not going to be enough for you to live. So if you think about it, once you retire in your early 60s, if you live for another 20, 25 years, that's going to be almost $3 million that you need to have set aside. So some folks, it might get a little scary for them. So best thing that you can do right now is get yourself out of debt. If you can't afford that nice car, don't get that nice car. Maybe you will be able to afford that car once you get into a better spot financially, because, I remember when I was working at Country Ride Home Loans, and one of the individuals that was working with me there had a Bonneville, and he was making a larger payment on an older car than I was on a brand new G35 Infiniti. And the main reason why he was paying more is because his credit was awful, Mike. It was probably in the high 500s, and he was paying like a 28% interest on an old car that, at the time he thought, oh man, I'm going to get into this car. It's going to be really cool. And I'm going to spread it out over a 7-year term. Now think about that from a
long
standpoint.
Time, yeah.
The whole time that he's making payments on it, it's a depreciating asset. It's doing nothing for him. Obviously, when a car is probably the worst investment that you could make, unless
it's a liability. I don't know why. I know they call it. People say it's an asset and it's an investment. It's a liability.
Yeah, unless there are ways to make money on the cars nowadays, and this could be a huge tip for some people out there. Is if you're not working every single day, or maybe you have a job to where you work from home, if your car is just sitting in your driveway or in your garage, you may want to think about using an app like Turo, Turo, and rent the car. Have it actually make money for you.
Right.
Because you could rent it out. Even if you don't have the best car, you could still rent it out for maybe $39, $49 a day. And maybe that takes care of your monthly car payment and the insurance. So now you have that completely taken care of. Maybe you actually rent it several times per month, and now you're starting to maybe have a couple extra $100 that comes in from that, and maybe you could pay off the car sooner than you imagined. If you have an extra $200 coming in every single month, now you could start adding more towards your car and pay that off sooner rather than later.
Well, think about it from a time perspective with your car too. And the work that you do, and whether a car is something you should invest more or less money into. How often, consider ourselves, Jason and myself. How often do you use your vehicle for work?
As of right now, I work primarily from home. So if I wanted to, if I was in a position to where I needed to, I could just put the car on Turo. And right. I just looked at the app. It's Turo. It's free. You could go on there and you could have your car rented out. That's why you see people with like exotic cars. One of the big things what they call a hack right now is they put their car on there and maybe rent it out 3-4 times per week. And that brings in, maybe $4,000 per month. And that covers an exotic car payment.
Now, don't go out and get an exotic car and think, I'm just going to rent it out and it'll pay for itself. No. The point is like they want this exotic car. They can afford this exotic car, but they only drive it once in a while. So why? It's just sucking money. So why not let it make money for yourself or by itself? But my whole point was like when you even consider going to get that car, and Jason's like the big fancy cars are nice. And if you're living that life that allows you to, you've graduated that level and you can afford to have that extra expense because that's what it is. Go ahead. But if you're at that level, you're at the very beginning, you got to think, okay, how often am I realistically going to use my car? How much do I need it for work? If it's very little, don't be embarrassed to drive something that's not as cool as everything else.
Exactly.
That's really, who cares what other people are thinking? You got to think, okay, this extra money that I could be spending on this car could actually, instead of me throwing it away and down the drain on a depreciating liability like a vehicle, I'm just going to have this, 150 month car payment on this Honda Civic. And then that extra, or maybe less, it really depends on your credit, but they're pretty cheap.
You just need to get out of the mindset of, you need to stop caring what other people are thinking.
Right.
And just worry about yourself and your family. If you have a family, if it's just you right now and you're just trying to make ends meet, who cares what other people think of your car? If people are that materialistic and that is how they think of you as a person, then unfortunately that person's not a friend, and I probably would recommend not being associated with them.
I actually saw a guy 2 days ago when it was raining coming up the road on a Vespa, a scooter. And the only thing that was going through my mind is I was like, this is either two things. Either this guy really loves riding a scooter, which is cool. You get a scooter to ride it. Or B, that's just the only vehicle that he can really afford right now, and maybe he doesn't care what people think about him, and he's a little uncomfortable riding in the rain because he's using the money he's saving on that little vehicle to spend or invest on more important things.
Yeah, no, that's absolutely true. I get in the mindset of don't worry about what other people are doing. Worry about you. And that's all you really need to focus on. And, what we just talked about with the car thing, you could totally start doing that immediately. And if you're not happy at the job that you're at right now, find something that you are going to be happy at. Maybe there is a stay-at-home position. Maybe there is another position that you could find that gives you more leverage in your life, that you could be doing things with, maybe renting your car. It doesn't have to be the most fanciest thing. But also, too, let's talk about the credit card debt.
Oh, yeah.
If you're in credit card debt and maybe you do have some assets, or maybe you have a home, obviously considered asset, somewhat of a liability, but let's just say you have a little bit of equity, or maybe you do have a decent credit score, but you can't catch a break. Well, try applying for like a personal loan. Now, the place that I would recommend that people do that at, Mike, is like a small mom and pop bank. It's a state bank. They may operate in like maybe 1, 2, or 3 counties, maybe 5 counties. You could find a bank easily within your area, your neck of the woods, by going to a site called BauerFinancial.com, and that's BAUER Financial, FINANCIAL.com, BauerFinancial.com, and you'll be able to find banks within your area and see if they'll be able to give you a personal loan. Even PayPal is doing personal loans for folks nowadays. Now, why would I recommend for you to get more debt? I'm not. I'm recommending that you switch your debt over into lower interest bearing payments. So if you could go from a 9% interest to a 1%, that's going to be able to help pay off your principal in a much shorter period of time. The other thing that I could recommend to you, Mike, this could be a really big game changer for folks too in cutting down the time that they have with their credit card, is set up a bi-weekly payment with your credit card company. So if your credit card payment is $500 per month, set it up to where it's bi-weekly taken out. So $250 taken out and then $250 taken out. What that's going to be able to do is it's going to be able to add one additional payment that you're already paying to go straight towards the principal. So that's going to help you out quite a bit. So if all you could take care of right now is that minimum monthly payment, this is going to give you one extra payment that's all principal that goes towards paying off the debt. And when you're doing that, that's increasing your credit score. That's going to increase an opportunity for you to get some of those credit card offers to where you could do card transfer balancing, to where you could get 0% interest for 12 months. That's going to help you out dramatically even more. So now think about it. You're making $500 a month. That's all going towards principal. Now you have that additional payments as well, because how it works out like this, Mike, there's 12 months in a year, correct? By taking it and doing bi-weekly, it takes it to 26 payments. So if you divide that by 2, that's 13 payments. So now you've created that extra payment for yourself. And that changes things up quite a bit. You could do the same thing with your student loan debt. You could take the student loan debt and maybe take a chunk of it and put it onto a personal loan that you could be paying off. And that's something that's at much more reasonable terms than what folks are paying right now for their student loan debts.
Oh yeah, and student loan debts right now are those are some of the debts, because it doesn't go away in a bankruptcy. It's one of those debts that you're going to pay down, whether you like it or not. They're going to get their money, so you have to be proactive in getting it down and getting it paid down as quickly as possible, because otherwise, you're going to be stuck, because I think this happens to a lot of students. They're stuck with their student loan debt, so they're paying that every month once they graduate college, and they're trying to figure out what they're going to do with their life. So then to keep paying bills and to keep up with life, they get a credit card, and they start racking that up as they start working their job, which, sad to say, is usually fast food or some retail job or whatever they can get out of college.
Well, it's never what the degree is for. And if they do, they have to start off at the bottom of the barrel. We've all been there, and they aren't making the money that, college said that they would. So they're barely hanging on. They may have to move back home with mom and dad.
Mm-hmm.
And don't, a lot of people have a pride thing. If you have to do that for a little bit, then you have to do that for a little bit. But, don't feel like it's a pride thing at that point, because sometimes you may have to do that. Right, Mike?
Yeah. And I know that you didn't go to the college route because you didn't see the value there for yourself. I thought I saw the value there for myself. I do see the value in college, especially for trades like doctors and lawyers. And obviously you need college. For myself, there really wasn't the value. And I racked up a ton of debt in student loans, and when I got out, I was not right where I was at. I was actually worse off because I had this student loan debt. Then I had to get credit cards and everything else to keep living off of that. And I wasn't smart, and I'm telling you this because I wasn't smart when I initially even decided what kind of student loan debt I needed to get. I just kind of went to a college that I felt was good, and I took a degree that I thought was good, but I didn't consider the amount of debt I was going to be ending up with by the time I was done. And I never finished it because it really started to get out of hand. But by the time I was done, I would have had $80,000 in student loan debt for a bachelor's degree in photography.
Yeah,
So, where was I going with that? I don't know. That was not a smart way to rack up debt. And you got to think about that when you're going to school. Like, okay, I got to be smart about my student loan debt. There's grants. There's, I can make payments. Don't just try to be like, I can put this all on a student loan, and then whatever money I'm making while I'm working, this is my money to goof around with. Like, be smart about the student loan debt, and don't get some stupid, I don't want to say stupid. Don't just jump into the first thing you see, and don't jump into the first college. Look at how much your total is going to be at the end.
Yeah. If you're maybe wanting to go back to school, maybe you didn't finish school, one of the best things that I would recommend is maybe going to like an online school, like University of Phoenix or Western Governors University. Those are places that
community
are
colleges. Community colleges have great online programs.
Yeah, absolutely. Get your prerequisites out of the way.
Mm-hmm.
Western Governors University, you could get a 4-year degree within like a 2-year period, and they do a pass-fail system. And if you pass, you get a 3.0 GPA. So for me, that would be a phenomenal GPA tab, because my GPA was horrible in high school.
But just be smart about the debt that you acquire with student loan debt, basically. Just like the credit card debt, be smart about the student loan debt. Don't just get the first student loan in terms and everything and rack it up and think, oh, whatever.
Yeah, no, exactly. And for the folks out there, that do have the student loan debt, you could do additional things. If you're really, really upset with the job choice that you are at, don't be that person that ends up staying there for 40 years and then says, you know what, this was just awful. It completely sucked away my life. Go someplace else. There's plenty of opportunities right now. We're at the lowest for unemployment from a statistical standpoint. There are companies going up all over the place. Or you could do something really cool. If you really have that fancy degree, that's cool. That was your choice. You made that choice. Maybe there's an opportunity for you to become an entrepreneur and start using some of those skills that you were able to obtain, and maybe do something in your part-time and start building up and growing and scaling your own business. Does it take any money to do that? Absolutely not. There's tons of resources. There's our podcast. There's other amazing podcasts out there that give away tons of free information. It doesn't cost anything to use your smartphone and to put together a YouTube channel. It doesn't cost much to do a lot of the stuff that people do in order to get themselves financially free. So I highly encourage you to do that. And if you need to go and Uber on the side or use Lyft, and you need to do those types of things in order to get yourself above water, go and do those things, because nobody else is going to feel sorry for you. The government's not going to forgive the student loan debt. As much as some of the politicians out there think, hey, let's just forgive this. it was your choice to go out there and get the student loan. You went out there, you made the decision to go to school, and that is fine. We all make decisions and we have to live with those decisions. But if you're going to go out there and make it happen, you're not going to be doing it by working for somebody else and making them a ton of money. You're going to be able to go out there and make it happen by creating for yourself and taking massive action.
Yeah.
What do you think,
Mike? I think that's a great point, because I think, as far as having that mindset of not being in debt or working your way to get out of debt, the same mindset comes from successful entrepreneurs that, because you surround yourself with books and knowledge. I surround myself with the books and knowledge. And one of the common themes, and I keep talking about this every time I talk to somebody, is just their mindset and the way they think of expenses and the way they think of costs and the way they think about what other people think of them. It's all the same. They don't care what other people think. They don't really care what kind of car they drive or what kind of house they live in. They all have goals for what car they want to drive and what house they want to live in. And when they can get that, they will. But until then, they just drive whatever because they don't care. And then in the long run, college, some of them went to college, some of them didn't, but they all took the responsibility and said, I went to college, I got to pay for it. Just like I racked up credit card debt, I got to pay for that. Or I did this and that, or I got in a foreclosure, I did this and that. No matter what it is, their mindset was all the same as, okay, I got to come up with a solution on not only satisfying my debts, but also not racking up additional unnecessary debt and then planning for that retirement in the future, which they all do, which retirement to them is kind of what most people think of. People today don't think of what retirement is to a CEO, really. I mean, there's really nothing to compare it to.
No,
what we perceive as retirement is basically daily living for them. Barely, I don't want to say barely work, because they work, as a CEO, you work your ass off, but you just get to that. I don't know. It's not the same. It's really not.
No, I completely agree. And, one of the things that you could start doing right off the bat is start thinking of, if you work 9 to 5 for somebody else, you still have plenty of time to devote to yourself, like maybe going to the gym, going for a walk, going for a run, spending time with the family. But if you could put in an extra 2-3 hours every single day and maybe go do the Uber thing, or maybe rent out your car through Turo, or doing whatever is needed in order to get yourself out of debt, going and getting a personal loan with a very small interest rate on it so that you could do some balance transfers, or maybe going out and looking for credit cards that have like introductory rates at 0% for the first 12 months, and you don't have any yearly payments that you have to make for being a part of that credit card. There's plenty of options out there. Mike, when I was severely in debt and, my first son was just born, one of the things that I did is I sold off my whole entire DVD collection.
Oh yeah, I remember that. Yeah.
I sold off a bunch of memorabilia that I had as a kid because I used to collect basketball cards. I sold off pretty much everything I had. I remember my mom got me this nice watch for senior year. It was, to me at that time, it was a really nice watch, but it was more of a sentimental thing because I actually graduated high school. But I ended up having to sell that. I sold a bunch of watches. I don't want to say a bunch. It was only like 3. But I ended up selling a ton of stuff that just wasn't being needed. So many people might go out there. They go to Best Buy or Sam's or Costco, and they buy these TVs and stuff. And it's like, there's nothing wrong with watching TV. But if that's all you're doing at the end of the day when you get home from work, you're really just rotting away. You're rotting away.
Because, I actually thought about this not too long ago. I was watching a movie, and I'm looking at this. I can't remember who was on. It was a high-paid act. I would think it was a Marvel movie. And they're making a ton of money. I'm thinking, these guys are getting paid for me to sit here and watch them, while I'm paying to sit here and watch them. So, when I thought about that, I'm like, God, I should be working right now. This is a huge waste of time. Like, I can watch this movie on the weekend, so I turned it off. Because, as soon as I thought about that, I couldn't get it out of my head that I'm paying and they're getting paid, and this is not right. Yeah, it is. It's fun to enjoy, but you know what I mean.
Yeah, and as we wrap up here for final thoughts, one of the things that I would encourage and recommend you do, even Mike and I were talking about this today, just being more diligent and being much more strict with your schedule, because time is the most important thing that you can't buy more of. Unless something happens within the next 10, 20 years and you can buy more of that back, I don't see you being able to do that anytime soon, or maybe within our lifetime. But being more diligent, like if you're going to take a lunch break from 12 to 1, like Mike and I had this conversation, don't do it at your desk. Get away from your desk and go and get your mind clear so that you can, when you come back and you could be refocused, you could be recharged. Make sure that you spend time and work on your health standpoint too. Go for a walk. If you don't have a gym membership or can't afford a gym membership, go for a walk. You could do calisthenics.
That might be the investment too. That might be, instead of paying for Netflix or cable, pay for a gym membership. That's your credit card debt. The cable's not doing anything, but the gym membership might.
Yeah, and maybe until you get to a standpoint to where you can pay for a gym membership, and you have cable and you have all this other stuff, get rid of that stuff for right now.
Yeah.
Do you need it? No. You could go to like a Starbucks if you need the internet, and you could do that. You could go to other coffee shops.
So many options.
And you have so many different options to go out there, so you don't have to be paying for all these expenditures. Start looking at the expenditures that you currently have and see if, it makes sense for you to have. A lot of the stuff you really don't need. A lot of folks, they don't need to be watching TV all of the time. If you're in debt right now and you see yourself watching TV for more than 4 hours every single day, most people do that. Or you spend time on Facebook for a couple hours every day. So between TV and Facebook, you're on there for about 6 hours a day.
That's a long time.
If you're not doing stuff productively on Facebook to where you're making connections and connecting with folks in order for you guys to maybe do like joint ventures and make money together, it's a complete waste of time. What does it matter if Susie just went to, Red Robin for lunch and is showing off her cheeseburger that she just had? Who really cares? If you're not going on there for the right reasons, then get off.
That's a good point, man. I love how you had started this off with, because the whole thing about this was getting out of debt. And you started them off with a very good exercise of putting the singles and the small bills in envelopes, and then saving that up to a $500, earnest money deposit that you can then use to grow your wealth. Like, that was a great nugget. I love that we started the show with that, and that you brought that insight. Even in somebody that knew you that long, I didn't know that you did that. So that was pretty cool.
Yeah. And if you need the motivation, if you don't have the people that are surrounding you that you feel like are really kind of giving you the power that you need, because I'll tell you this right now, everybody is unique, and everybody has the power within to become whatever they want. It all depends on your surroundings. So if you have bad surroundings, stop using that as an excuse. As you can see, our shirts, no flipping excuses. Go to Goodwill. Go to all the Goodwills. People turn in books that they no longer use. Do you think you could find some hidden gems? Absolutely. You could find tapes. You could find CDs. You could find books. Find that stuff and start eliminating the people that are always in your ear telling you that you can't do something, because I know what? You can. You can do it. So go out there and make it happen. Mike, is there any parting words that you have?
Besides going to Goodwill and, going to places where you can find discounts on books, listen to podcasts. Keep listening to podcasts. Everybody asks, where do I get this information? Go to the podcast. It's free. You don't got to pay for anything.
Yeah, exactly. It's not how it was when I was coming up in the ranks. Podcasts were very unknown.
Yeah.
There's been some amazing people out there that have been doing podcasting for years, but it's just now starting to hit the mainstream. And, there's tons of them out there that are great. Hopefully that you're a subscriber of ours. Hopefully this episode earned a 5-star review from you. Go to iTunes. It's in the show links. If you're watching this on Facebook, click the link below in the comments section, and we'll make sure that you could go over and listen to all of our episodes. All of the episodes have nothing but nuggets in them. Nothing but bombs that could go off and really explode to where it's going off and creating the type of mindset that you need in order to be successful for yourself, not for anybody else, but for you. So make sure you go there. The No Flipping Excuses show. It's right there on iTunes. And for those of you that have I believe an Android
device. It gets pushed out to Stitcher. It's on SoundCloud. I mean, it gets pushed out everywhere. There's really no excuse. And plus, we do it on our Facebook page. You got links to the Direct. You got links to the iTunes. I would highly suggest going subscribing on iTunes if you have that, because Jason and I are going to be releasing secret episodes on Thursdays. We're not going to be telling people when, but if you're not subscribed, you're not going to get that push notification, and you'll miss that hidden gem.
No, that is true. So if you have any questions about what we've been going over on this episode when it comes to debt and getting a better credit score, becoming the person that you are meant to be, make sure you reach out to us. We love hearing from our listeners. We love being able to give back. So make sure if you need anything whatsoever, you could drop a comment here. Or if this episode is already over and you're listening to it as a recording, you can always reach out to us by going to support@jasonluchesi.com. Again, that's support, which is SUPPORT @jasonluchesi.com. And that's JASONLUCCHESI.com. But hey, Mike and I are here for you. If you need anything, we will talk to you on the next episode. Take care. Go flip the deal. See you later.